Hi everyone, my name is Leanne and today I'm going to be doing the info dump book tag. I was tagged to do this by What Victoria Read and I will leave her video as well as the original creator linked down below in the description. And this tag is kind of what it says on the tin. It's just a lot of info about my reading life dumped on you. We're going to be talking about my reading preferences, my reading tastes, my relationship with my books and the books that I own. So without further ado, let's get into the questions, the first of which is how many books on average do you read per month? And if we're just going by 2021 statistics, the average books I have read per month is 15 books. Not all of these will be full-length novels. I do count picture books in my reading. They are books, therefore they count. I do get comments sometimes from people saying like, oh my god, I wish I read so many short books so I could read that many books in a month. And I'm just like, well, like you could, like if you wanted to read more books in a month, that you could just read shorter books. Like that is something you could do. I've definitely had people like look at the stack of books that I've read in a month and be like, oh, well, you didn't actually read like 15 books because a few of them were picture books. And I'm like, okay, well, if we took the picture books away and I read 12 books, that's still a pretty good amount of books in a month. And it doesn't matter how many books anyone reads in a month. It doesn't matter if the number of books that you read a month is different from another person. I average about 3,800 pages a month. I do dedicate a lot of my time to reading, you know, and I hardly watch any movies. I don't watch TV shows all of that much, which isn't a better or worse life choice than what anyone else is doing. It's just, you know, what I want to prioritize is my reading. So I feel like I accidentally went off on a rant when this was a very simple question, but it is just something that bugs me around the conversation of like how many books people read. But I do feel like it only sort of goes one way. Like I never see people who read, I would say, like significantly above an average number of books per month. I never see them passing comment on anyone reading fewer books than that or judging or being unsupportive. But I do see it the other way around where people who maybe read fewer books are very judgmental about people who read a lot of books. And it's like, I think there's often an undertone of like accusing me of not reading them properly. I don't know. Anyway, the next question is how many books are there on your TBR? I did do a video recently that was looking at my quarterly statistics and goals for my reading, and one of my main goals is to get my TBR to below 100 books, which I haven't done yet. My TBR is probably around, I don't have the exact figure at the moment, but I'll put it on screen. Be just over 100 books, I guess. I'm not going to dwell on this conversation for too long because I do go into it in some detail in that quarterly review video. Question 3 is how do you organize your bookshelves? Now, I don't think it's a complicated system, but I think it's a different system to some people have. So I have my main two shelves, which have fiction and non-fiction all mixed in together, and they are just unread books, but they are arranged alphabetically by publisher, which is something that I find really useful in a kind of professional capacity. I also have a smaller bookshelf, which houses all of my poetry and some little books as well, which again, alphabetically by publisher, although like a couple of aesthetic choices made there as well. I have my main long shelf, which I call my childhood and classics bookshelf. On top of one of the main shelves, I also have a little section for picture books. And then in my office where I am working at the moment, working from home, I have a lot of the books that are published by the publisher that I work at. Completely forgot to mention that I also have a TBR trolley, which is overflowing with all of my unread books. The next question is what genres do you read the most from? My kind of loose answer for this, I guess, would be like contemporary commercial fiction, but I think my tastes are definitely in kind of that cusp between commercial and literary, what I would probably call book club fiction, which I think is a term that I actually stole from Katie at Books and Things. I think she was the first person that kind of made that distinction of those kind of books in my head. But I do also read a lot of children's books and YA books. It's something that I have a professional interest in, and it's something that I just really enjoy. I think over the years, especially being on BookTube, I've realized that I really don't have a niche when it comes to my reading tastes. Like there are some channels that I really associate with like non-fiction, or some that I really associate with thrillers, or some that I really associate with romance, whereas I kind of like dip my toes in lots of different genres, and I think I've got quite a broad reading taste. And similarly, the next question is what genres do you own the most? Now, if you were classifying classics as a genre, which I don't think is necessarily the most productive thing, because, you know, within classics, there are going to be like crime and mystery books, there are going to be romance books, there are going to be satires. But if we were thinking about classics as being a genre, then I think there definitely would be a significant portion of my shelves that were classic novels. Again, children's books are definitely something that I own a lot of. And also in terms of nonfiction, I do have a lot of nonfiction books as well that are about themes of like gender and feminism and sexuality. Question 6 is, what is your preferred form of reading? So, you know, audio, physical books, ebooks. My preferred will always be a physical book, but I definitely do appreciate other formats as well, because, you know, a physical book isn't always possible. Sometimes I don't, it sounds really daft, but like sometimes I just don't feel like sitting upright to read. So my e-reader is really useful for that. Sometimes I do want to listen to a story as opposed to reading it. You know, maybe I'm a bit tired, or maybe I'm multitasking, you know, I'm doing some chores around the house or I'm working, in which case audiobooks are perfect. I think using all of these different formats of reading is something that I really, really enjoy. But you know, if I had to pick an ultimate preference, it would be the physical book. Question 7 is your most owned author. And for me, this is a poet. This would be Carol Ann Duffy, who is one of the first poets that really got me into poetry, and her poems mean a lot to me. I think I've got 21 Carol Ann Duffy books. Now, obviously, you know, they're poetry collections. A lot of them are quite slim. I'm also counting her Christmas books that are super, super short, but she's by far the writer that I have the most books from. Question 8 is, describe your favorite kind of writing style. So when it comes to fiction, I am definitely a character-driven reader. There doesn't need to be a lot of plot in the books that I enjoy. What I really appreciate is very nuanced, complex, flawed, but realistic characters. In terms of like how literary or beautiful the language or storytelling might be, that's not something that really draws me in. Like if there's beautiful descriptions of like setting, that's not really the thing that is going to make a book a favorite for me. It is all about character for me. Now, obviously, we do need elements of the other things. You know, there does need to be a little bit of a plot there. I don't want the writing to be bad, but my absolute favorite books are the books that have had really great characters. Question 9 is, what literary devices do you like or dislike? One device that I really enjoy is when we are following two different timelines, especially if in the more recent present day timeline, the character is figuring out something about the past and we are also following that story in the past. So I'm thinking about books like A Keeper by Graham Norton, but also one of the books that I think this is done the most superbly in is The Confession by Jessie Burton. In terms of things like dislike, I don't like the use of letter writing all that much, and I don't know what it is about letter writing, but just when I think about some books that I have not enjoyed in the past, letter writing is often a factor in them, and I think it's being very aware of the fact something is being written down. Does that make sense? I think it's just when the character themselves are like consciously writing down their own story, like you're aware of them being sat at the desk writing. That's something that just really pulls me out. The next question is, what character archetypes do you enjoy? I've seen some people answer this question with the kind of traditional character archetypes like hero, anti-hero, but I think I'm gonna go a little bit more kind of specific. One character archetype that I really enjoy, like it's kind of like a stock character that you see a lot, is like young woman figuring her shit out. So the example that it always comes back to is like Bridget Jones, but I'm also talking about like Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams. I'm also thinking about Ghosts by Dolly Alderton, How Do You Like Me Now by Holly Bourne. Like mid-20s to mid-30s, figuring out romantic relationships, careers, friendships, navigating all of those things changing and shifting as you're at different points in your life to your friends. That's not to say that all of the women in all of these books are like the same character. I don't think they are, but I think they kind of come from a similar starting point in that sense. I also really love conflicting twin sisters, and this is something that I definitely associate more with YA, but I'm thinking about like Melt My Heart by Bethany Rutter and Perfectly Preventable Deaths by Deirdre Sullivan, where the sisters are quite different. I just find that dynamic really interesting, and I don't have a sister and I wish I did, but I'm all about like female friendships, so I find that dynamic between twin sisters something that I get really intrigued by. The next question is, which are your favourite book settings? In terms of a country, I do read a lot of books that are set in Ireland. That's something that I really enjoy, obviously. But being a bit more specific than that, I really like books that somehow feature a kind of liminal space. So I'm thinking like hospitals or airports. Now, obviously not the whole book needs to be set in these places, but when they are featured in books, I find that just a really interesting dynamic, because I think, you know, I think they're just quite strange places, and they often depict a kind of transitional point in someone's life. You know, you're either going to be in a hospital for a really bad reason, like you're ill or someone's ill, and that's obviously going to have a massive impact on your life. Or, you know, it could be something like someone's having a baby, you know? Again, a massive change in someone's life. And airports are spaces that are literally liminal, you know? You are between places, and it's normally quite a significant reason in a book why you would be catching a flight. And as a kind of like cozy reading thing, I also really love books that have like a bakery or a really cute cafe in them for no other reason than just like cozy vibes. And the final question is, what are some of your favorite romantic or plot tropes? I really love fake dating. So I'm thinking about To All the Boys I Loved Before. I'm thinking about Helen Kwan's books. I don't know what it is about fake dating, but I just find it a really entertaining way for a relationship to develop. I think there's almost something quite theatrical about that as a trope, because it's like you as the audience, you're in on the fact that these two people aren't actually dating. So it's the fact that you hold that knowledge that the other characters that are witnessing their relationship, you hold that knowledge that they don't have. And I think it adds kind of a theatrical element to it. And you're witnessing how these characters perform a relationship before they actually are in a relationship. So that's it. They are all of the questions. If you have any thoughts on anything I've mentioned in this video, do leave me a comment down below, or if you have nothing specific to say, leave me your favorite emoji. If you are interested in doing this tag and you haven't done it before, consider yourself officially tagged by me. I hope you guys are doing well, and I will speak to you in my next video.